are the best decks in Yu-Gi-Oh right now. Big dog, some things have changed here, and I am going to be rating the very best Yu-Gi-Oh decks in the world versus... oh Lord. On top of that, I'll be giving you insight on why these strategies could be so good, as well as what you should prepare for in the future. Let's go ahead and jump on in. Okay, big dog, here we are on the tier list, and the criteria is incredibly simple. Every single one of these strategies just so happen to have topped a regional recently, or just got new support from Master Duel for players that maybe want to get into the TCG. I will be ranking these strategies based on the ease of being able to win a YCS in this tier list. I think that this way is a little bit better for you to be able to gauge the power of these particular strategies, and I'm not saying that they can't be good in the right player's hands. I just want to give you an accurate assessment on the strength of these decks. Of course, if you disagree with one, let me know. I can't wait to hear what you have to say, and if there is a strategy you want on this tier list, I made a pinned comment for you guys to mention, and I'll be sure to put them on the next tier list. With that being said, let's go ahead and start off with Pearly. This deck got that dog in him, big dog. Pearly is incredibly good at being able to play a ton of hand traps to stop your opponent, but also make X-Pearly Noir, which is crazy good. It's one of the very few XE decks, and I think in a YCS setting, this is a strategy that 100% can compete. And basically what I mean that can compete is that you shouldn't be surprised if Pearly does reach the top 64 or top 32 bracket of a high-level event. It's actually really good right now. It's one of the only decks that can not only make Zeus, but also make its cards untargetable, meaning that commonly played hand traps like Effect Veiler, Infinite Impermanence, and Ghost Runner don't even think about using them, dog. Moving on is Centurion. Bro, somebody told me that this deck is based off of Gurren Lagann, and I've never seen the anime. Is it even good? Yes. Well, Centurion right now, without the support coming out in Legacy of Destruction, is at a regional level. I think one of the biggest reasons why it'd be incredibly hard for this strategy to top a YCS is that a lot of the strategies that I'm going to put in a rating higher will have some sort of invulnerabilities to the most commonly played cards, or has something that's going really good for it. Centurion, Calamity Lock or bust at this second. Now, don't get me wrong, the combo to make Cosmic Blazar Dragon is pretty good, but I think it's going to take some more support for this deck to really shine, which fortunately is coming out really soon. If you're Snake Eyes, big dog, I mean, let's just get the elephant out of the room. This deck is your best chance at winning. For a small sum of $1,000, Snake Eyes is one of the most ridiculous decks in Yu-Gi-Oh right now, and it's incredibly versatile. You can play a Fire King version, a Catch Tier version, hell, there's even a Volcanic version. But for right now, at this second, I would say that those versions are a little bit weaker than the pure version, but they do offer some type of versatility or immunity to certain cards. With that being said, I do think that the Fire King version is trailing right behind. Where the pure Snake Eyes version can lack in terms of big plays, Fire Kings make up for it. And if I were to give a rating right now, I think that Fire King is worse than Snake Eyes, but does have its perks when you're playing it, so you can choose either one depending on your preference. It's genuinely not by much. Chimera, big dog. On Tuesday, I said that Chimera is one of the 5 powerful decks that you should be playing, and I still stand on business about that. And the biggest reason why is because Konami has not explored illusion monsters fully. As of currently, there's about maybe 5 good illusion monsters. But with every upcoming set, we get more and more powerful illusion cards, and Legacy of Destruction is going to make this deck a lot stronger. But if we're talking about this deck being successful right now at the highest levels events, I would put this deck at YCS home. It's not that I think that Chimera can't be successful, but this particular tier list is about ease of being able to win the highest level event. Again, I still think that Chimera is an excellent pickup in a powerful deck. Just at this current second, not really its time. Now, you'd probably be surprised on where I would put Fluunderes. This is one of the better budget decks in Yu-Gi-Oh, but it's going to struggle into this new format. The reason why is because the decks that are going to be played can easily play around Fluunderes Impin, and a lot of the cards that Fluunderes likes to play, like Harpy's Featherstorm. With that being said, I still think that Fluunderes is a strategy that can compete. Against some of the decks that are affected by Harpy's Feather Storm, Shifter, and Imperm, it goes completely burr. And then there's gonna feel like there are some matchups that are just almost impossible to win. Fluunderes is losing its ground as the go-to answer against the top decks, just because of the other go-to answers being a little bit more powerful against Fluunderes. Voiceless Voice. I'm still trying to figure out, man, how you got a voice without a voice? Voiceless Voice still has not lost its stronghold on one of the best decks in the entire game. I actually think that Voiceless Voice is closer to best bet than it is to can compete. The reason why is because Voiceless Voice feels almost immune to hand traps. And granted, while players are playing cards like Forbidden Droplets, Lightning Storm, and Harpy's Feather Duster a little bit more, Voiceless Voice finds a way to continuously stay inside of the game with its different variants. And it's almost a safe bet to pick when it comes to building decks out of Phantom Nightmare. We can expect this deck to possibly get hit, but nowhere near where it won't be competitive. Kashtira, these are my boys. Now, I know everybody has a strong opinion about Kashtira. Either you love them or you've experienced them in Master Duel. When they summon Fenrir Unicorn, I never know what they're playing. What are they playing? In the TCG, Kashtira still has that versatility to potentially be a Snake Eyes deck, but even on its own, I think that Kashtira is one of the best decks in the game. The crazy thing about Kashtira is that it does have the anti-meta potential to lock out decks like Snake Eyes and Fire King with cards like Dimension Shifter, but it also has the ability to play the mid-range as one of the better decks against rogue Yu-Gi-Oh decks in themselves. Another crazy fact is that Kashtira has been consistently topping since we've entered this format, which is kind of cool. Labyrinth. Labyrinth is one of those strategies that just does not seem to die. But when it comes to making the top cut, I think the evidence points to itself. It is a regional level Yu-Gi-Oh deck. The strategy does have a good amount of success at the regional level, but once you get to the YCS level, it seems to crumble. And I think it's mainly because so many players are prepared for decks like Voiceless Voice and Snake Eyes. Cards like Ghost Bell and Ash will cripple this deck if the correct player is using it. And if you're in the top cut, you better believe the correct player is using it. Now, Tearlaments has been seeing a resurgence. A trap-based Paleozoic Tearlament deck. Bro, if you have not watched Monday's video, go ahead and check it out when I've talked about it. Traps are back. I think that this Tearlament deck has some legs to it. And there's a lot of people that actually love the strategy. I'm gonna go ahead and say that it's a strategy that can compete. Ironically, Tearlament would be so much higher if it weren't for the ban list. Cards like the Ishizu Shufflers, but also even monsters like Tearlament Kid Kalos are on the ban list, preventing this deck from being able to be a natural check to Snake Eyes and Fire King. But even so, I think it wouldn't be a surprise to see Tearlaments in the top cut because it is a deck that can battle against some of the lower end decks, and since it is a trap-based Yu-Gi-Oh deck, it can go toe-to-toe with Stun. Next is going to be Runic Stun, and where exactly where I put Runic decks right now. I think that Runic does have the ability to be incredible against decks like Fluunderes, but also be good against some of the top tier decks. There's always the threat of your Runic cards being able to banish your opponent's important cards. I know for a fact getting your original Sinful Spoil banished and not having a way to get it back is painful. And the deck also just came off a second place in YCS Medellin. I'm gonna go ahead and put it in the next best. I think it would be quite foolish to put it any lower. This strategy has a ton of potential. And when you're playing a lot of stun cards, which is pretty good right now, this can be the deck to be able to take down tier 0. Also, you like how I said it? Medellin, I fixed myself. Orcus. You know what's really weird is that Orcus is another one of those Runic-like Yu-Gi-Oh strategies that can do some damage. It has almost the exact same advantages as Runic Stun when it comes to being able to use Runic cards to gain resources, outgrind your opponent, and banish their cards, but it also has a twist. The Bestials in the Orcus cards giving you an Omni negation with Orcus Crescendo and allowing you to be able to summon huge monsters. I've actually playtested against this deck a lot, and if I were to put it in place, I think regional level is appropriate. This just might change if Orcus Harp Horror comes to 3, making the deck a lot more consistent. But what I've noticed about Orcus is that it is a little bit fragile. All you have to do is just wait for the Orcus line to stop. A lot of people don't know about that because they're typically scared of the Bestials or they're scared of the Runic cards, but once you stop this, it becomes kind of like a worse dragon Bestial deck. Unchained. Bro, tie me up for this deck. No Diddy though. Unchained, ironically, I think is a strategy that 100% can compete. And I'm almost disgusted that this deck does not have as many YCS tops as it should. Unchained, ironically, can go toe-to-toe with these Snake Eyes and the Fire King strategy, because when they try to destroy with cards like Promethean Princess, it can just replenish itself. Also, DDD Wave King Caesar is a complete blowout against the strategy if they don't have any answers. The only problem with Unchained, Charizard one. Konami really did preemptively hit this deck because it is an answer against the tier 0. Branded. Guys, you should already know about Branded right now. There's the Gimmick Puppet Nightmare, its ability to go second, triple tactics thrust, to search whatever you want, especially Branded Fusion, so you'll never be losing. Branded has easily solidified itself as one of the best decks in Yu-Gi-Oh's history. It's crazy how this deck is still consistent and able to play. And I think even if the Gimmick Puppet lock gets banned, or even if Branded Fusion does go to 1, Master Duel has ironically given us a blueprint on how the deck could still be played, and played incredibly well at a high level. The next best are the decks that I'm expecting to at least get inside of the top 16. They're that good. Raid Raptors. Okay, I'll admit it, I was coping for Raid Raptor. Raid Raptor faces a really big problem right now. A lot of times, if you get your main play stopped, you're a duck. On the flip side, if you can summon a rank 13 Raid Raptor monster, you winning. Personally, I don't like that type of variance when it comes to a Yu-Gi-Oh deck. If your opponent is smart enough, then they'll stop you from summoning your Raid Raptor monster at all costs, which I think that has been the difference between Raid Raptor's topping and not. I still think it's a regional level deck though. I think even a decently skilled Raid Raptor player has its helmet on incredibly tight and can sneak a couple of wins. It's just how consistent can that happen once players realize how to stop it. Manium. Manium has almost flew under the radar, and with Droll and Lockbird being played a lot less, I think Manium is still a can-compete Yu-Gi-Oh strategy. Ironically enough, people are playing less hand traps on top of that too, and that gives this deck room to be able to go full combo. Another thing that I like about Manium is that there are strategies that are going to be playing more Cash Tier Fenrir. My guy, you know what this deck does when you have a Cash Tier Fenrir? It's never a good sight. Manium is secretly one of the better decks in the game, but what about Vanquish Soul? I think that it would be incredibly foolish to ever count Vanquish Soul out. This deck has topped almost every single YCS. Granted though, it's typically top 32, so I'm gonna put it in can compete. The cool thing about Vanquish Soul is that it does have an amazing Fire King or Snake Eyes matchup. The deck is built to be able to go second and can dodge cards like Effect Veiler, Infinite Impermanence, Ghost Mourner, but also Promethean Princess. Of course, as you already know, it can play cards like Dimension Shifter. The only problem with this deck is that it requires a ton of skill. Horus Stun. I think a lot of people are sleeping on Horus Stun. Big monsters to the side of the field, cards like Skill Drain to back you up. When it all is said and done, just summon a Vanities monster, Forehead. This deck is consistently scary, especially with an engine that provides draw and a substantial ability. I'm gonna go ahead and put it in the next best. If you were to ask me right now, stun Yu-Gi-Oh decks are up. There's some of the strategies that are a lot easier to top with, and the bonus is that they don't require a huge brain to play. Oh my God, I'm actually advocating for stun. Volcanic FTK. Technically, Volcanic is a Snake Eyes and a Fire King deck. We seen what was going on. If the deck goes first, it can FTK your opponent, and a lot of times through hand traps. I think that this deck seemingly right now has no ceiling because there is no ban list to be able to get the fire cards. For right now though, I am going to put it at regional level. A lot of time when you look at decks, you don't want to be looking at Fool's Gold. The person that just so happened to have won the regional with this deck has been playing this for a very long time. He can be an incredibly skilled player. I'm not saying that you're not. I'm saying you got to understand. Real skill, the deck. A lot of times that can be confused when a player is really good at a deck. We can look at it and be like, oh, we can win. And then we play the deck and we find out we can't win with it. I think that Volcanics just might be that. Solomon Great securing another YCS top in a row. I think you'd have to be ridiculous to think that Solomon Great isn't a strategy that can't compete. It has now beat the NIP allegations and abuses cards like Promethean Princess to no other. This deck is actually really good. GB Smokey is gonna be mad at me because Abyss Actors did get a regional top, and I still don't believe it. We're in the Twilight Zone. This is a pendulum deck, my guy. It never happened. I think that this deck will be able to be consistently good at YCS home. The only reason why I think this deck will ever top is when people don't understand what Abyss Actor cards do. I don't think that the deck is bad, and I don't think that the person isn't skilled at the strategy. I just don't think that pendulums could be successful because of the restrictions that are being placed upon them. It's ridiculously hard. You got to think about it, big dog. Not only do you got to deal with the meta in cards like Dimension Shifter, You also have to deal with your opponent putting cards that aren't supposed to be in your pendulum zones in your pendulum zones, preventing you from pendulum summoning. Dark World.
Welcome to the Dark World. We have cookies.
Unfortunately, the cookies are oatmeal raisin. What are you doing, Demon? YCS home. Bro, I swear to God, you guys better not tell me you like oatmeal raisin. What are you, 50? Dark World at this current second just does not have the firepower to be able to compete inside of the TCG. It may have the firepower to be able to compete inside Master Duel though with the new support. Dogmatica Stud. Yeah, we kind of made fun of Dogmatica for so long, we forgot that it actually is a good deck. Incredible Glacia being able to search Dogmatica Punishment, but also Battle of Golgonda being able to protect your cards like Fossil Dyna Pachycephalo. Yeah, okay, all right. Stun is up right now. And not only can these decks play around strategies like Fluunderes, Unchained, and Tearlament, they're also incredibly good against decks like Snake Eyes and Fire King. Now, Oddic Evilswarm did get a top. Oh my God. I think Oddic Evilswarm is almost like Volcanics. One, you're gonna have to be an incredibly skilled player. But the twist with this is that at least the Volcanic is playing the best cards in the game. Oddic is YCS home. Big dog, I think that the odds of you replicating that success is definitely possible at your house. And especially if your friends are all playing Oddic Evilswarm. No lie though, the deck is crazy fire. Or Reptile. Now, Cyber Dragon has actually been doing some good damage. The reason why is because this is a link format. Your opponent has to commit into the extra monster zone. On top of that, Cyber Dragon is incredibly good at going second in OTK. I actually did play Cyber Dragon for a couple of weeks, and this deck is I think that it's regional level. Of course, you're gonna have to drop the big bucks on those Horus cards, but this deck can actually play going second and OTK the opponent pretty consistently, and I think it can also consistently top some regionals here and there. Dinomorphia. Crazy. Dinomorphia could possibly be an answer to Rogue Stun. The reason why is because it also plays trap cards to be able to get rid of your opponent's card, but a lot of times it can play under the restrictions that your opponent can put you under. Unless it's Fossil Dino. Nobody ain't restricting that. I'm gonna go ahead and say that Dinomorphia is a regional level Yu-Gi-Oh deck. I think that the potential for this strategy to be higher than regional level is pretty possible. But for right now, I could also just be coping and we could just need some more results. And lastly, Rika Plants. My boy Lance from the card shop would completely kill me if I put this strategy anything under regional level. And to be honest, he's right. The deck is good, but it does require a player that knows exactly what they're doing to be able to play. If you are a good plant player and actually read cards and understand what the deck can do, it also helps that you might be in Europe. The deck can actually succeed. And that's all that I have for today's tier list. I want to know what you guys think. Of course, if there is a strategy that I missed, or if you think I put something too high or too low, let me know down below in the comment section and I'll try to reply to you guys as much as I can. Of course, I hope you're having an amazing day and I'll catch you on the next video.